What if I told you that Dragon Ball FighterZ is gonna get more updates, more DLC, and a ton of new content in the future all the way until we get a sequel of the game, but Arc System Works is not gonna be behind all those updates? I think that that's the case, and we're gonna discuss it in this video and essentially kind of like debate what's the future of Dragon Ball FighterZ as a franchise and what's gonna happen in the upcoming years with the game, taking into account all the info that is present in the Daima Goku trailer, because there's a lot of hints that ArcSys might not be working with Bandai Namco anymore, but that doesn't mean that they're not gonna come back in the future. So let's get into the discussion around why Dragon Ball FighterZ right now might be receiving updates and new DLC that are completely under the management of Bandai Namco exclusively. If you want to see more content also for Dragon Ball FighterZ, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing, and now let's get into it. And well, very quickly, let's actually talk about the things in the Daima Goku trailer that hint to the fact that Arc System Works might not be working with Bandai Namco anymore, and they are not behind Daima Goku as a character. They probably didn't develop it at all. So the first thing is that Daima Goku in his moveset has a lot of reuse assets. You can see in the trailer the Super Baby Air Grab, you can also see Vidal's dodge, and even the kind of like keyframe animation of Yamcha's level 3 on one of the supers for Daima Goku, and also the explosion effect from Android 16. So there's a lot of things in Daima Goku's moveset that are taken out from other characters in the game and kind of like incorporated into what he's gonna do in FighterZ. Then on top of this, if we also go all the way back to, for example, the trailers for the last season pass with Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and Baby, or even the solo trailer for Lab Code 21, in those videos there is still credit for Arc System Works in the development of the game. If you go all the way to the end, there is the ArcSys logo on every single of those trailers, even if they were published or put out in the YouTube channel of Bandai Namco Entertainment. And this video for Daima Goku that we just got is also published on that YouTube channel, but if you go all through the trailer, there's no mention whatsoever of Arc System Works as a studio, and by the end, when they show the logo or like the people that are working behind it, it's just the Bandai Namco logo and that's it. So there is a chance that Bandai Namco knows that there's a lot of money building behind if you don't put more updates in this game and you don't keep sealing DLC, skins, and more stuff like that. So they're like, we are gonna take the management of the game and we are gonna make our own characters, and Daima Goku is essentially gonna be kind of like an experiment so that we can see if people actually buy a DLC that is a little less high quality than what ArcSys does, but it still can look very good and be very fun to play. And I think that that's gonna be the case for Daima Goku as a DLC. It is essentially a big experiment from Bandai Namco to see if they can still make you put money into the game if they make the DLC themselves, because I would say that there is a decent chance that Daima Goku was actually developed in-house within the Bandai Namco team, and they didn't even call another studio to actually make the character, and of course, they also didn't work with ArcSys for it. Then in addition to the speculation, there's also people on Twitter that have experience with animation that are talking around why the case of Daima Goku is breaking the rules of Arc System Works' typical way of animating Dragon Ball FighterZ characters and background, using different types of frames in terms of calculating when the character frames move and when the background moves with the character. And I'm gonna put a clip of it really quickly so you can understand what I mean, but this is another piece of information that you can kind of like add into the possible speculation that ArcSys is not creating this character or working on it.
With no exceptions, in Dragon Ball FighterZ, the game is run at 60 frames per second. Effects animation, such as the confetti we're seeing here, is animated at 60 frames per second with that frame rate. During cinematic animation, effects are still held at 60 frames per second, but the character and the camera shooting the character, which will mean the background, are moving at 15 frames per second. That's called animating on fours, because 15 is a fourth of 60. So we have 1, 2, 3, moving, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is how every single piece of animation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, is animated in Dragon Ball FighterZ. The only exception that exists in the game is Daima Goku. If we look at the lava rocks in the background of Daima 4 Goku's intro, if we look at the outro as well, and if we look at his level 3, the character is not moving with the background and is instead moving at half the frame rate, which is 8. We're not trying to argue that this looks bad, because it looks really good. It's just that we've noticed there is a rule that Arc System Works never breaks with Dragon Ball FighterZ that is being broken here.
Now, it is important to talk about the fact that this makes a ton of sense. There's no need to kind of like go crazy and think the Arc System Works is never going to work with Bandai Namco again. I think that what's going on here is that after Arc System Works made Lab Code 21 and the character got released, it was probably the time frame in which they were already talking with Sony and Marvel to make Marvel Talk-On, and they started to work on the game from that point onwards. They also just released Guilty Gear Strive around that date, so they had a lot in hand, and they probably just said to Bandai, we are not gonna make more DLC for fighters because we don't have the resources and the workforce to actually keep giving you more characters, even if the game is very successful. So you have to see what you do by your own. You can keep updating the game, of course, because it's yours. They are the publisher and they are the owner of the Dragon Ball IP, not ArcSys. But ArcSys as a studio is not going to keep making more DLC for the game. And I think that all the years after, Lab Coat 21, we are getting Daima Goku because in Bandai Namco there's enough incentive to think that we can actually get DLC all the way until ArcSys has workforce and time again to make a sequel for Dragon Ball FighterZ. And that's probably going to happen all the way to 2030, 2031, when, Marvel Talk-On is essentially at the end of its development cycle, or at least at the middle, since they said publicly that if Marvel Talk-On is very successful, they want to put DLC for the game all the way for a decade. So I personally believe that that's kind of like the case with the relationship between ArcSys and Bandai Namco. I don't think that they are kind of like enemies or they hate each other. It's just that ArcSys is not on a position in which it is worth for them to keep making DLC for fighters instead of focusing on the 2.0 version for Strive, right, that we just got, and also Marvel Talk-On as a project that is coming out this year. Now, it is important to say also that I don't think this is a problem. If Bandai Namco can actually make the characters on their own in-house and develop more DLC, more updates for fighters all the way until Arc System Works can work with them again to make a sequel, I think it's great. This game still has a lot to give. There's a lot of characters from original Dragon Ball, from DBC, from Super, from GT that you can put in the game that everybody would be happy to have. And of course, the quality would be a little lower, and I think that we can see that on the Daima Goku trailer with all the reuse assets, right, and some of the animations. Even though there's clearly a lot of parts in the trailer that look amazing, it is super high quality. There's also other ones that seem a little bit more stiff. So I think that it is worth to at least see how good the character is when he comes out, give it a try, and if we think that he's really cool and is actually a good addition to the roster and it's still cool looking and fun to play, there's no reason for Bandai Namco to not make more characters in-house and still kind of wait, like I said before, so that ArcSys goes back into making a sequel after they're kind of like quote-unquote done with Marvel Talk-On. So I believe that this is good. It is not a problem depending on how they execute it and if we as an audience actually accept and we think the characters are good, even if ArcSys is not making them. Now the thing is, what does this exactly mean for Dragon Ball FighterZ and its future as a franchise and as a title? I think that this essentially is just an experiment, like I said earlier, and if a lot of people buy Daima Goku, and also there is a decent amount of returning players that already own the game, and maybe even newer ones because of the Daima Goku DLC, then Bandai Namco is probably going to be open to update the game even more and put more DLC on it all the way until we get a sequel, because if they don't do it, they are just losing on money. If they can make the characters in-house and don't have any trouble developing the characters themselves, even if they are a little lower quality, but if people still like it, there's no reason to not do it. So I believe that the future of this game is still very bright and there is a chance for a lot of more updates and more DLC if actually Daima Goku is a success. So if you want to see more Dragon Ball FighterZ characters, more DLC, more updates, you should probably think of putting some money on Daima Goku if you actually like the character. So thank you for watching. Let's hope that Dragon Ball FighterZ has a bright future as a game and more updates and more DLC, season passes, because it has a lot to give still, and Dragon Ball as a franchise has so much that you can add into the game. So thank you again for watching. Like and subscribe if you can to support the channel. I would appreciate it, especially if you want to see more content for Dragon Ball FighterZ and other fighting games as well. See you on the next one. Take care.